All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Good morning to you. It is the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson. And, you know, Mark is on the cruise ship, Albert.
Yeah, if you're not following Mark on Instagram, he's posting basically just an open body of water every day, saying this is his home for the, I guess, fifth day, I think, fifth or sixth day.
And last night he called me and the waves were big. They had headed into a storm and the ship was listing. And apparently it was kind of a scary situation. And they were thinking, uh-oh, if there's an emergency, what do we do? So he's having an interesting vacation. Today he's supposed to be traipsing through jungles. So we'll see how that all goes. I can't wait to get a text from him later on today to see how the vacation is going. But today is John Rothman Wednesday on the Mark Thompson Show. So we're going to visit with John Rothman. I have a lot to ask him about. And that is everything from the UN General Assembly vote on the Israel-Hamas war, and they're demanding a ceasefire. We'll also talk about what's happening at the Supreme Court. We'll talk a little bit about Trump, of course, but the Supreme Court today saying, yeah, they're going to be they will be issuing an opinion on the abortion pill, mifepristone. So we'll see what John Rothman has to say about that. Is it wise for the Supreme Court to weigh in on this? We'll see what he has to say. John Allaire will be with us in the second hour. Well, I should say he'll be with us, but it's a pre-recorded interview that Mark and I did with John Allaire, who is the most amazing pianist. And he has toured with superstars and celebrities. He sits down to talk about that experience and then plays us some great holiday music, something not to be missed. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I think you will too. Stories from the Sky is coming up during this edition of the Mark Thompson Show. So we will get into that in the second hour as well. But yes, the first thing to mention to you this morning is the Supreme Court deciding they will be weighing in on whether to restrict this abortion pill called mifepristone nationwide.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This drug used in early pregnancy, usually up to 10 weeks, now that could be down to 7 weeks, and often used when an ectopic pregnancy presents itself as a chemical way, a non-invasive way to end a pregnancy that is often life-threatening and sometimes not life-threatening. And I would argue it's really no one's business why someone needs to use this or not. The case that the Supreme Court will consider, even in states where abortion is still allowed and still legal, concerns this drug mifepristone. It means that they are going to, again, be jumping into the fray where it concerns abortion. We already know they overturned Roe v. Wade last year. And so I don't trust anything they're going to do. I think they come at it from with an agenda in hand, the Supreme Court. And I honestly am angry that they have taken away the rights of women. And you've seen what's happened with this poor woman in Texas who's now become the face of the reproductive rights struggle in these states where rights have been taken away. And she's had to leave the state to protect her reproductive health. This case that the Supreme Court is taking up could be decided by July. And it really goes to who gets access to abortion, where, in what state. Do you get access to it by mail? Mifepristone right now is available and not subject to restrictions. The High Court determining in April that access to the drug will remain unchanged until the appeals process finishes on another case. The Biden administration and the manufacturer that makes mifepristone are asking the justices to reverse a federal appeals court decision that, if it's allowed to go into effect, would restrict access to mifepristone, and groups and doctors that oppose abortion would like the justices to go even further than a conservative appeals court did, and also hold that the even a very approval of the drug was unlawful. So here we go again. We'll see what they have to say, but yeah, I'm losing faith. I really am. I don't want to. Let's talk a little bit about sports. Mark called last night and said, "This is huge. This is huge, Albert." It turns out you've been following. It turns out that if you've been following the deal the Dodgers made with Shohei Ohtani, who's this amazing baseball player, they made him the biggest deal value-wise in sports history, a $700 million deal, that with some of that deferred until later, to play for the Dodgers. But it turns out that the Giants had the same deal laid out in front of them by Shohei Ohtani's representatives, and they agreed to it. They said, "Yeah, we'll do it." So basically, the Dodgers agreed and the Giants agreed. So Ohtani got to pick, and he picked Dodger blue.
I mean, the Dodgers are way better, like on a roster standpoint of winning a World Series. And Shohei
Mhm.
does play. I'm not sure if you know, Kim. He does play two positions actually. He pitches
Okay.
and he hits. So
So
it's
you think that's why he did it? Because it's a better team and more likelihood of winning titles?
I think so. I mean, it
Okay.
makes more sense because they're that's he hasn't made the playoffs yet in his MLB career. It's been 6 years, so it makes more sense. It's terrible. I really love the player, but since he's on the bad guy team,
Mhm.
hard to even objectively root for him. So I
Does
think
it now
any
make
news over the
Giants
weekend.
fans dislike him? Is he gonna get booed by the Giants fans now?
I don't think so. Well, not yet,
Mm,
unless he really is a thorn in our side. Well, which
mhm.
he might be like easily since he's so good, but yeah, very disappointing. But the contract is really crazy. They're deferring a
Yeah,
huge chunk of that till after his career. So in 10 years he'll be getting it. He said that he'll make enough. I think his salary season wise is $2 million,
yeah.
which is really low for a superstar player. And he says he could get by between that and all of his endorsements. So I mean, he's
He can
sitting on
get
a
by.
he's sitting on a huge post retirement, post career savings, I guess,
I
of
mean, hey,
above $600 million.
that's great. I mean, and does he get it if he gets injured still too? I don't know.
I'm not sure the logistic wise, but yeah, I
Mhm.
think he gets a since it is a deferred. I think he's gonna get it for sure in the next 10 years after his career.
Okay. Well, so the Giants lose out on Shohei Ohtani, but they did make a deal for a different player, and I think it's over $100 million. Is that right?
Yeah, this Korean player Jung Hoo Lee, who's
Yeah.
it's weird because a lot of Giants fans are excited that they got this player, but a lot of people are really disappointed since we didn't get Shohei, that we got kind of this unproven player, but there's like,
Mhm.
some hype around him. I know Yahoo thinks that he's like the 10th best available player.
Right.
So
Okay. That's
I mean, it's
something.
something. It's better than nothing, Kim. So I'm happy for anything at this point.
And while we finish our sports roundup, can we talk 49ers for a minute? Because they had a great weekend. And I talked to Rich Walkoff this week, and he thinks they're Super Bowl bound. Knock on wood, right?
I mean, it's trending towards that direction. It's looking good. I don't want to jinx anything. I just
Yeah.
you just got to stay healthy and make it to
Okay.
the playoffs, and then anything could happen. And if we're gonna round up Bay Area sports, the Warriors are seem to be spiraling downwards,
Mm.
and Draymond Green's a little off the rails this season. He literally
Got
punched the guy
ejected
yesterday.
again. He
Yeah,
punched a
no,
guy?
yeah, he punched a guy yesterday. He tried to make it look like he wasn't doing it. The whole world knows what he was doing. So
Well, there you go. All right. Thank you for the sports talk. I appreciate it, Commissioner. We always need a little sports in our lives. I'm was
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's right. I was looking at this story last night, and I I'm so bummed. Hopefully you can help me with a picture, Albert. But you know who Andre Brower is? Really good actor. I've really enjoyed his work over the years. And I saw that he passed away at the age of 61. They're saying it was from some type of short illness. And I don't know if, it brings to my mind COVID, obviously, or you're diagnosed, you hear people are diagnosed with something 1 minute, and then the next week they're dead. I don't know what type of short illness he had. Thank you for the picture, Albert. But he's such a good actor. He's so powerful in the roles that he plays. He was on Homicide: Life on the Street. He was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He was 61 years old and he has passed away from this brief illness, and that's all we know. Very, very educated. He grew up in Chicago. He went to Stanford and then Juilliard as well. And I was thinking about Robin Williams also went to Juilliard. And you have these actors that practice their diction and their voices. And he's one of them where the minute he speaks, it's like you can tell exactly that he's been trained in that way. Powerful, resonating voice, and now silenced. He was also, I said Homicide: Life on the Street. I think he had 11 Emmy nominations. Yeah, he took the trophy for the lead actor in a drama series in 1988. He said, he said, I've been playing a brooding detective for a really long time. He said, if I keep getting these roles, I'm just going to have to, I'm going to be locked in to playing that. But he often did play police officers, but a lot of different types of police officers. So again, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, he was on that show as well. Men of a Certain Age, he was on that show. He said he thought it was an opportunity to do something very different from the rest of his career. And he said he liked it because it opened up his mind and made him think in a different way. Uh, I'm just sad to see him go. I feel like he had a lot more to offer. Most recently, he was in She Said, which was the story about Harvey Weinstein's abuse of women. That was a 2022 movie. He was in Glory in 1989 with Morgan Freeman and Denzel Washington. Um, Man, he's been in a lot. Yeah, it's hard to name everything, but he was very celebrated. And just feel like there was so much more for him to do. So Andre Brower, we lose him at the age of 61. Mm,
Yeah, I recognize him from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It was huge on Fox. They were kind of shopping channels as it was still popular, and they're planning on canceling it. And it's
yeah.
yeah, he was one of the main characters in that too. So it's very very sad.
He had this I don't know, kind of deepness about him and powerfulness to his voice that always just resonated with me. I saw this other story pop up on SF Gate this morning. There'd been all this back and forth about Dianne Feinstein's house on the coast, um, kind of batting back and forth between her heirs and the heirs of her late husband. It sold. The house sold at Stinson Beach. Somebody paid $9.1 million for this beautiful house. The 4-bedroom house was sold last month. It had been the center of a family feud with her stepdaughter saying, "You can't sell this house," to her biological daughter saying, "Yes, I can." So they went back and forth on this one. Um, it's a really sought after property. Only 19 properties built along the Bolinas Lagoon in the Seadrift community. So hard to get a hand on one of these. Only 3 of these properties changed hands in the last decade. So it's very exclusive. When one of these properties pops up, it gets snapped up really, really fast. Feinstein's house was more than 3,500 square feet right on the waterfront. It has a pine facade and open floor plan and vaulted ceilings. It's a really pretty house. So yeah, finally that is put to bed with a $9.1 million sale. So that's done. There's so much to talk about today, and I can't wait any longer to bring John Rothman on the show. We're going to talk about Israel. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court and another case that they'll be taking on regarding Trump. So let's bring him on right now, Albert. It is John Rothman here on the Mark Thompson Show. Hi.
There's no place I would rather be than with you and Albert right here on the Mark Thompson program.
Absolutely. Well, happy Hanukkah to you.
Thank you. 6th night and 7th night coming up tonight, and we're having a perfectly grand time. Wonderful. I don't know how many more potato latkes I can eat.
Where's the best place to get a potato latke? Because my son asked me, he has a friend in class that celebrates Hanukkah, and the friend was talking about latkes, and Jacob said, I want to try one. And so
my wife's kitchen, but it's not open for public consumption.
Well, we'll be over.
You
hear a knock on the door.
Even I can make a latke.
Really?
So all you got to do is grate the potato, put it all together, fry it up with oil, and you've got a latke. And then you just have to have either plenty of applesauce, which I like, or sour cream, which others like.
All right. Well, I'm not going to try it, so I'll try to find a restaurant where we can go sample it.
I think, if I may be so bold, I think Trader Joe's has some prepackaged.
Oh, do they? Okay. So. Good. Well, now that we've gotten the important stuff out of the way.
Can you please tell them we did a commercial for them so that...
Yeah, we'll do that. But let's get into it because I wanted to talk to you about, first of all, there's a Supreme Court now taking this case about potentially undoing the Capitol riot charge against hundreds of people, including Trump. So today, the Supreme Court said they will hear an appeal that is a review of an appellate court ruling that will change. It's a charge against 3 defendants accused of obstruction of an official proceeding. So a lot of people that were involved in the Capitol riots were charged with obstructing an official proceeding. The charge referring to the disruption of Congress's certification of the 2020 presidential election victory by Joe Biden over Trump. It is among 4 counts brought against Trump in the case brought by Jack Smith and the special counsel, right? That accuses Trump of conspiring to overturn the results of his election loss, including conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. So now the Supreme Court is going to weigh in on whether that's a valid charge.
Listen, I'm very clear. Of course, there was an attempt to obstruct the proceedings.
Yeah.
You and I covered the fact that there was an attempt to obstruct the proceedings. What is interesting is that Jack Smith has decided to go the route of Leon Jaworski, who was the Watergate special prosecutor, asking for an immediate ruling by the Supreme Court. And it is vital to Donald Trump's defense. He's saying, well, you can't do it to me because it's double jeopardy, which it is not. An impeachment in the United States Congress is not the same as this kind of situation in terms of law. And the other thing, of course, that they are claiming is that a president has absolute immunity, which a president doesn't. Otherwise, Richard Nixon would never have been caught for the June 21st tape dealing with Watergate, the discussion that he had with Bob Haldeman. So there's no doubt to me that how the Supreme Court will rule. However, it is political. And Donald Trump put 3 justices on the court who could rule in his favor. But let me point out, in the case of the United States versus Richard Nixon, that what happened was that Nixon put people on the court who voted against him. And of course, most importantly was Justice Rehnquist, who recused himself because he knew everybody. And by the way, Clarence Thomas should do the same thing. His wife has been directly involved in these conspiracy theories. However, Rehnquist did the right thing. I'm not sure Ginny Thomas will do the right thing, but in any case...
Or Clarence Thomas, right?
Well, it's Jenny who would, because it's his wife, of course,
right.
Clarence Thomas. So my feeling, Kim, is that no one is above the law.
Yeah. And
the Supreme Court ruling should be very clear. However, as we now know, and we're going to talk about the abortion case, and we'll talk about the use of drug to allow a person to terminate a pregnancy, the Supreme Court is now interfering in a variety of ways, in ways that I would not necessarily like to see. Particularly with Roe v. Wade, I was indignant because one of the questions that was asked each of the three who were put on the court was, would they obey precedent? Would they go with what the court had ruled before? And all three said, oh, yes, of course we would. We'd never overturn a precedent, but of course they did. So my suggestion in the case of Donald Trump, the good news is the court has fast-tracked it. The second bit of good news is that we will now know before March whether or not this trial can go ahead. What Jack Smith did was courageous, important, and vital. And so now we have to wait and see what the court does.
And you're talking about him asking the Supreme Court to weigh in quickly on whether presidential immunity applies here.
That's right, Jack Smith.
That's right. And I was talking to David K. Johnston yesterday, and he was pretty confident and saying, it's very clear that Jack Smith has a high confidence that he's right in this matter.
He is right in the matter, but it's not a question of right or wrong, Kim. It's a question of what the justices decide.
That's right. And I don't trust them. How do you think it's going to come down on a court that, I don't know, we've seen and come down conservatively time and time again?
See, I hope the court views this according to precedent. Richard Nixon, that case, the United States versus Richard Nixon, was fast-tracked. He had to produce the tapes. He claimed executive privilege. They said no. When a criminal matter is involved, you have to give the information. That's why the tapes were released. I hope that this court will follow that precedent. We were lucky in the Nixon case. It was 8 to nothing with one abstention, if you will, the recusal of Rehnquist. So my hope is that the court will do the right thing. Right. There is no question in my mind, and I think anybody who's read the January 6th report knows, and if you had ears, you heard the attempt to obstruct the counting of the electoral vote. And you saw Mike Pence insist on coming back to make sure the process was completed. So I have to tell you, to me, it's cut and dried. But we won't know until the court rules.
Yeah. Since we're talking about the Supreme Court, let's kind of roll back a little bit and talk about this mifepristone that the court has decided now to weigh in on whether there will be limits on this medication that's used to abort pregnancies early on. And this could affect the when as well, going from 10 weeks down to 7. So there could be new restrictions put on this. And it's just another way, it seems to me, to limit access to women who are really needing reproductive care.
You're absolutely right. And it goes to show something I've said for years and years and years. We don't just vote for a president. We vote for who will serve on the Supreme Court. Right. Because the president nominates them. And I hope the American people rise up next November and frankly, tell the Republicans enough is enough. This is a serious question. If I were a woman, I would be very angry. Yep. And I'm a man and I'm angry. The idea of limiting a woman's right is just beyond my comprehension. And look what happened in the Texas case, where the Texas Supreme Court is stacked by Republicans. They ruled that this particular woman could not proceed with the abortion, even though a lower court had said she could. She had to travel out of state, but she has the means to travel out of state. Right. What happens if somebody doesn't have the means to travel out of state? It is appalling and shocking. And when you listen to what the Attorney General of Texas had to say, his disregard for women's rights is just astounding. So I am absolutely adamant about the right of a woman to choose. Yeah. It's not a question of whether you're for or against abortion. It's whether you are in favor of a woman's right to control her own body. And let me tell you, if somebody tried to control my body as a man, I'd be just as angry.
I'm horribly angry, and I'm feeling right now really sad for this woman. And also thankful that she has put her identity out there and put her story out there, because now she kind of becomes the face of this. Here's this horrible situation, a woman that wants to this was a wanted pregnancy, and so I just don't know if this is what they meant by.
The so-called pro-life people don't want a woman to have the right to
No.
choose.
Mm-mm.
Don't want a woman to have the right to have a pregnancy.
Mhm.
If they had their way, there'd be no surrogate pregnancy. There'd be no in vitro pregnancy. There'd be nothing, because their view is absolute. I remember as a kid going to a catechism class. Nice Jewish boy that I am. I used to go to catechism class with my friends. And we learned that masturbation was the equivalent of murder, because you were misusing sperm,
Oh God.
which could be used for reproduction.
Yeah.
And one of my Catholic friends used to say when he went to confession, he had to confess that he had masturbated so
Oh,
many
God.
times, and this is absurd.
Yeah.
And we have to overwhelmingly rise up and repudiate it. And I'm counting on something, Kim, and that is the American people saying to the Republicans, enough is enough. I was shocked last night, not shocked, but disturbed by Ron DeSantis, who equivocated on the issue. And there is no excuse for anyone. Barry Goldwater had it right. Mr. Republican, Mr. Conservative. He said, I'd kick the ass, and I can say that on a podcast, I would kick the ass of these religious fanatics right out. So between a woman and her doctor.
That's
So
right.
if you want to have an abortion, you should have the right. Now, these Republicans throw up the whole thing. What happens if you're in the last trimester or a week before you're going to deliver? That is so unusual, but it happens. I know a woman who had to terminate a pregnancy just weeks before she was going to deliver.
It's
She was doing it
devastating.
because her health was in danger and
Yeah.
the baby was deformed.
Yeah.
Should she have the right to do it? You bet she should.
Yeah.
And no court in the land
Yeah.
should be able to obstruct that right.
I know in my heart and mind that the abortion issue is not a political one. It becomes something that's between me and my doctor, or a woman and her doctor. But in this particular case, we saw what happened in Ohio, where Ohio voters stood up and said, no, we don't like what you're doing with abortion in our state, right? And so you would think that in Texas, with the presidential election looming, this was a moment for Texas Republicans to appear to have a heart, right? To let this woman go easily and do what she needs to do, because she's, her fetus has been diagnosed with trisomy 18, which is, fatal. If it doesn't die in utero, it'll die, in the couple days afterward. So this is a moment that they could have said, listen, this isn't what we meant by an abortion ban. We want to do something nice by this woman, or we want to take care of this woman, what have you. But they didn't do that. They doubled down and they got even uglier with it. And let me tell you, what's happening with this woman in Texas, Kate Cox, has pissed off women around America. So they just basically threw down a lightning rod, and we'll pick it up and go to the ballot
Sure,
box.
we're going to go to the ballot box. But look, may I explain to you? Many a night on KGO, I would discuss the question of a woman's right to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And many of you who listened on KGO know that I immediately got calls from people who said, but abortion is murder. I even had people who had the audacity to tell me that it was another Holocaust. And this is a completely irrational approach, but one that exists, and it is a political matter. But I believe absolutely, unconditionally, that it's between a woman and her doctor. And may I tell you the other thing that absolutely infuriated me? The idea that a doctor could be prosecuted for participating in eliminating a pregnancy, could go to jail, could lose his or her license. It's absurd. And if you believe in limited government, well, look, I've told the story before, Kim. When I was in college, before Roe v. Wade was law, I was head resident of my dormitory. and we had men and women. The women were in an annex. And I used to go on inspection tours. And one day I went into the women's area, and the door was ajar, and I heard groaning, and I knocked. This woman had had just a terrible abortion, and she was bleeding. And I wrapped her up, put her in my car, drove her down in Whittier to Presbyterian Hospital. The doctor said, if I had not gotten there, 10 minutes later, it would have been too late. She would have died.
No. Yeah.
Now, and the most interesting thing for me is I told this story on the air, and somebody who lived in Murphy Hall in my dorm, where I was head resident, called and said, oh, we remember, John, you were a hero that night.
Mm-hmm.
But to many, too many in this country, the idea of a woman's right to choose is a holocaust. It's murder. And that we had this discussion a long time ago about in vitro, the question of whether or not someone who wants to get pregnant should have the right to do it. And frankly, there are people who say absolutely not. And one of these days, they're going to go to court and stop that as well. I can see it. Everybody can see it.
Yeah.
And thank God, 7 states, including Kansas, have stood up and said absolutely not. And look what happened in Ohio in the last election. So I just have to tell you, I wish the court would not rule on this, would butt out.
Exactly.
They have no business doing it. It's between a woman, her doctor, and her pharmacist.
Right. Randy writes, why did I think Texas Republicans would do the right thing with this woman? And Randy, I didn't think they would. They didn't. And I didn't think they would do it because they care about women or they care about her. But I thought maybe the political pressure, right? After, as John mentioned,
they don't care.
Seeing what happened in Ohio.
They don't care.
This is an election year. I thought maybe that would make them reel it in a little bit and have a heart. But
they don't care, Kim, because they believe it is a religious question, that it is murder. And that is the tragedy. Why would a doctor who performs an abortion be put on trial for murder? Because that is the ruling of, frankly, people who believe that abortion is murder. That was the teaching of the Catholic Church for years. Mm-hmm. That's the teaching of too many people and they can believe it. Listen, if you don't want to have an abortion, don't have an abortion. If you don't want to have in vitro fertilization, don't have in vitro fertilization. Yeah. If you, that's your choice. But the minute it becomes law, then you're impinging on someone else's right to freedom. And can you imagine this woman's pregnancy was doomed to failure? No. And she already has 2 children, but she might want to have more. That if this pregnancy were not terminated, she might never be able to have another child. No. I mean, it is sheer lunacy. But may I point out again, because we were talking about Donald Trump and the Supreme Court, that who is president matters.
Very much.
And I have said this over and over again, and I'm going to say it one more time. If you put a Republican in the White House, you are going to have this kind of court. And that, frankly, scares the bejeebers out of me.
It does. And it's when you look at someone like Liz Cheney, you think, oh, she's proven that she puts her country over herself, that, it would be the kind of president. But then I look at what she thinks about things like abortion and how she would, further a Supreme Court that would be against reproductive rights. And I just can't go there.
Well, Liz Cheney was in favor was rather opposed to same-sex marriage. Mm-hmm. Do you know why she's flipped her position? Her sister is gay.
Yeah.
And her sister is married. One would think that if people are confronted in a very personal way, they would understand. But I'm afraid those who believe that abortion is murder, that it's another Holocaust, there's no rational way to deal with them. And that's a crime. That's the crime, by the way.
Let's move to Israel.
Sure.
President Biden was at a campaign reception yesterday, and he said that of Israel, it has most of the world supporting it, but they are starting to lose that support by the indiscriminate bombing that takes place. That's what the president said. Mm-hmm. I got an email yesterday from a listener viewer who knew that you were coming on today, and she wanted me to ask you about whether young people are having their support dwindle because of what's happening with President Biden, that they're having their support not only dwindle for Israel, but also for President Biden because of his stance of supporting Israel. Um, so can you respond to that? And then we'll kind of get into what happened at the UN yesterday as well.
Sure. First of all, it's not indiscriminate bombing. The Israelis have targeted bombing. Somebody said to me, well, Israel's committing genocide. I said, really? If they were committing genocide, there wouldn't be a Palestinian alive. They would slaughter them all. That's not Israel's position. The people to blame for what is happening now is Hamas. Where did Hamas base themselves? In the middle of hospitals and schools and civilian areas. And yes, in the middle of Gaza. So I have to tell you, I have tremendous sympathy for the Palestinian people. I think what is happening is terrible. Most Israelis believe that as well. But when you have Hamas saying, if we can do it again tomorrow, we will, what happened on October 7th, the Israelis ask, what choice do they have? And I can only tell you, no one rejoices at the death of innocent people, Israeli or Palestinian. Nobody rejoices. But the Israelis are not going to roll over and play dead. They're not going to allow it to happen again. And may I also say to you, it is not unusual for President Biden to be critical of Benjamin Netanyahu. They've always had a tense relationship, friendly, but tense. I don't think it would matter who is prime minister of Israel. This is not a matter of Benjamin Netanyahu. The leadership of Israel, left, right, and center, have agreed, because of Hamas's attitude, that they have no choice. All Hamas would have to do is release the hostages. Still, the war crime would have been committed. The mass slaughter of October the 7th would have been committed. But Hamas is simply saying, give us the opportunity, we'll do it again. So I understand within the Democratic Party, and there's one example that's really important, and that's Michigan, where the Arab and Muslim vote is considerable. And it supported Biden because they viewed Trump as being too pro-Israel. I still think that Michigan will vote for Biden because the issues involving the people of Michigan are very clear. But I don't know whether you can ever ask a nation which has been attacked, and I don't know another nation which warns people in advance of bombing, for God's sake.
Yeah,
the Israelis warn them, and the Israelis have gone out of their way to do it. Are terrible things happening? You bet they are. And if I were going to blame somebody, it's Hamas. The Israelis could have done nothing. And what then? You know, I mean, it's.
Is there anything the Israelis can do to limit the attacks on areas where there are civilians that?
Yes, have Hamas move out. Hamas goes into the middle of civilian areas, Kim. It looks for human shields. I don't know what the Israelis can do. I really don't. How do you accomplish what needs to be accomplished when Hamas relishes the idea of people dying? I don't know.
I've read that international support for Israel, which was high right after October 7th and the attack, is dwindling now. Do you feel that that's true? And if it is true, is it because of the images we're seeing of innocents dying? Why are we? Of course it is. Why is the support falling?
I'm repelled by what is happening. But then again, the United Nations, which has once again called for a ceasefire, has still not condemned what Hamas did on October 7th. Neither the General Assembly or the Security Council. And the Israelis are saying, okay, you want to be upset with us? Great. But let me tell you, Kim, the United Nations has a history. Do you know they have never passed a resolution condemning terror? Never. But do you know the nation in the world which has been condemned routinely year after year? The United Nations condemns Israel. It is an astounding double standard. That doesn't excuse the fact that people should be appalled by innocents dying. They should be. I am. But I want to emphasize again, there has never been by the United Nations a condemnation of Hamas. Nothing. October 7th doesn't exist in the United Nations. That's appalling. So I will tell you bluntly, for every action, there's a reaction. The Israelis are saying, okay, if you took a vote in the world, most people in the world would not vote for Israel. The anti-Israel sentiment in the United Nations is legendary. All you have to go back and look at is the infamous Zionism is Racism resolution, which was passed on November 10th, 1975. Only once in the United Nations history has a resolution been rescinded, and that resolution was rescinded in December of 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union and after the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt. So the United Nations has always had a double standard when it comes to Israel.
Yeah.
Does it reduce the support in the world? You know, the Israelis have been made very clear. They would rather have support reduced and be alive than have a lot of support and all be dead.
Well, what does it mean for Israel when support is reduced across the world stage? You know, if they're standing alone, they're not going to get as far as if they're working with allies.
Let me tell you, Israel has allies. The European nations, the United States, Egypt and Jordan, and the Arab Emirates. They may not approve of every action Israel takes, but they support Israel. Israel's economy is booming. Trade is up. Tourism has been limited somewhat by the war. But the Israelis are not going to go back to be isolated. I mean, it just isn't going to happen. And remember, the goal of Hamas and the enemies of Israel, including Iran, is the destruction of Israel. I mean, that's all there is to it. They want every Jew eliminated, not just from Israel. Look what's happening in our own country. Look what happened, Kim, this last week with 3 university presidents who would not condemn genocide against Jews. I mean, what in the world has happened? I heard that and I thought, what are they talking about? Now, Penn's president was forced out, as was the chairman of the board.
Sure.
Harvard and MIT have decided to keep their presidents who refused to condemn genocide against Jews. But I'm going to tell you, I'm thoroughly disgusted. Can you imagine? Just think for a minute, Kim, if it had been genocide against African Americans, no one would have questioned, or against gays, no one would have questioned. But do you understand the message sent to Jews is people can commit genocide against you and it's okay. They call for genocide. We're not going to condemn it. I don't understand. And when you ask the question about Israel, that's what the Israelis are curious about. Why is there such a double standard? Why is what is permitted to other people, that is sanctity, opposition to genocide, not permitted to Jews? I know that a lot of you listening are going to say, well, John, you're overreacting. Trust me, I'm not. I'm telling you exactly what the Jewish community believes. I just got a note from my synagogue asking for a contribution because they need to beef up security at the synagogue.
They
Do
sure
you know
do.
that one synagogue here in town is renting space from a Catholic school because they couldn't, they're doing reconstruction at their own synagogue. You know what was written on the wall of that Catholic school? Not far from my house? Death to the Jews, free Palestine. In San Francisco. I mean, I find it mind-boggling. Why would it be so difficult for someone to condemn genocide? By the way, not just university presidents. How about the United Nations?
Yeah.
Is it so inconceivable, so wrong to ask that what happened on October 7th be formally condemned? I mean, is it wrong? Of course not. Now, I'm not excusing the fact that innocent people are dying.
Right.
Let me be crystal clear. I've worked with Palestinians for years. They're human beings like everybody else. This is not against Palestinians. It is against Hamas. And, well, I don't know what else I can add, Kim, except the double standard that we feel as Jews and that Israelis feel in the world is very clear. If Israel wanted to commit genocide, there wouldn't be a Palestinian standing.
Does President Biden, is he losing support because of his support of Israel? And in an election year, when he's trying to defeat someone like Trump, who is a danger to America, in my belief, does he have to worry about and have his actions affected by political opinion of now with the tide turning, and it seems like more people are feeling that maybe the United States shouldn't support Israel as strongly.
To a degree, but did you hear what you can play it? I mean, Albert can pull it up.
Mhm.
Joe Biden said, "I am a Zionist. I may be a Christian, but I'm a Zionist. I know that if there were no Israel, Jews in the world would not be safe." That's the whole point. And I admire Joe Biden for his courage on a whole variety of issues. And he has been resolute in his support of Israel.
Which
And
is interesting that he would say he's a Zionist, because a lot of people don't know what that means, and it's a kind of a dirty word.
no, but you see, it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Zionism is the right of the Jewish people to national self-determination.
Mhm.
I want to tell you a funny story. I brought Menachem Begin to San Francisco in 1975, many years ago. And one of the leaders of the Jewish community, it was at the height of the Zionism as racism thing. Begin was exhausted. He said to me before he came into the room, he said, "John, I just 15 minutes. I have to rest. I'm just flown in. I think he flew in from Puerto Rico." He said, "I'm exhausted. Please." I said, "Okay, Mr. Begin." So we come in and he speaks for 10 minutes, and then he says, "And now I'll take questions." And one of the people in the room, who happened to have been related to me, said, "Excuse me, Mr. Begin, can't you do something about this dirty word Zionism?" And Begin, who was tired and slumped over, all of a sudden the blood rushed to his face. He was alert as one could be, and he said, "My dear Mr. Zionism is the scaffolding upon which Israel was created. Zionism is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people." And then Begin went on for half an hour. I wish there'd been a tape recorder, with the most brilliant refutation, because Zionism is not a dirty word. We have had many Christian Zionists in this country, liberals, conservatives. My old friend Bob Drinan, who was a Catholic priest and member of Congress, the first one to introduce a resolution to impeach Richard Nixon. Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale, you can get down the list. And Republicans who say they are Zionists as well. All Zionism is the right of the Jewish people to have what every other people in the world have. And so when you use the term dirty word, it immediately sprang to mind. When Begin was asked that question, he erupted. So did Pat Moynihan, if you remember. Pat Moynihan, who was our ambassador to the United Nations on November 10th, 1975, you can hear his speech, by the way, on YouTube, was indignant. And he took that resolution, which was passed by the United Nations, and tore it up. And I will tell you that the rescission of the Zionism is Racism resolution on December the 16th, 1991, was an incredible accomplishment. And only happened because there was peace between Israel and some Arab states, because the Soviet Union collapsed, and because the United States stood firm.
Yeah. Let's move to, if we could, the visit to Washington, D.C. by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He's trying to get some money to keep this war going, and it's kind of
wait. Excuse me. It's not to keep a war going. It's to resist Russian aggression.
And to end the war in his favor, I would imagine.
Yes.
But he needs support, because he needs to be able to continue to defend his country. And one of the things that President Biden said last year was that the United States will stand with Ukraine as long as it takes. And then yesterday, President Biden said the United States will stand with Ukraine as long as we can. So as long as it takes versus as long as we can, that's kind of a big difference.
Look, it's the Republicans. Why isn't the Ukraine aid and the Israel aid bill passing? First, because the aid to Ukraine and the aid to Israel is linked. But number two, the Republicans are saying we have to secure our own southern border before we worry about Ukraine. This is, unfortunately, a history of the Republican Party. They were the leaders of isolationism in 1940, when France fell just before the Republican convention. Thank God the Republicans nominated Wendell Willkie, who was an internationalist, and said we have to help the British. What if Bob Taft had been nominated in 1940? There would have been no Lend-Lease, and Hitler would have won the war. Look, we have a commitment to Ukraine, and I point a finger at the Republicans. And let me be clear, Kim. I'm not bashing Republicans because they're Republicans. I think the Republican Party serves a vital role in this country. I was once upon a time a Republican. But to oppose aid to Ukraine, to obstruct it, to tie it to our own border problems, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
If I were Zelensky leaving Washington, I would be very upset because without the support of Europe, which is basically now doing everything they can for Ukraine, and the United States, Ukraine can't resist. Putin will win. Did you watch Russian television?
No.
They are rejoicing. Putin is rejoicing at what is happening in Washington, D.C. It is just appalling. And I have to tell you, as vigorously as I will oppose Republicans on the question of women's right to choose, their attitude on Ukraine has to be exposed to the American people. Talk to people from Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia. They're terrified. If Putin wins in Ukraine, the Russian bear will claw its way back into Europe. And everyone understands that. And I think the Republicans are being very short-sighted. But then again, the Republicans traditionally have been isolationists.
Yeah.
Republicans have not wanted our involvement in the world. Thank God. Thank God. Let me just quickly, very quickly. Why did the League of Nations fail in 1919? Because of the Republicans. Henry Cabot Lodge Sr., Hiram Johnson of California, William Borah of Idaho. They opposed the League of Nations. If the League of Nations had existed, Hitler might not have succeeded. There might not have been a World War II. At the end of the Second World War, Franklin Roosevelt had great wisdom. He put Harold Stassen on the American delegation and Arthur Vandenberg, senator from Michigan, who was, by the way, a great isolationist and became a great internationalist. The Republican Party needs to understand our role in the world. The United States is the economic backbone of the world. The United States is the protector of the world. Let me throw one more thing out to you. I know we have limited time. There's never enough time with Kim McAllister. But the question of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Trump is making clear he will withdraw from NATO. Can you imagine if the United States pulled back from NATO? What Putin would then, he'd have a green light. I mean, the irresponsible comments by Donald Trump and by his supporters, the entire approach to our role in the world. My favorite book growing up, a book I still read and reflect on, is a book by Wendell Willkie called One World. It came out in the middle of World War II, became a bestseller, and laid the groundwork for bipartisan support for American involvement in the world, particularly the founding of the United Nations. So I want to be crystal clear on this. The Republican obstruction of aid to Ukraine is a black mark on the Republican Party. And so I hope that those of you who are Republicans will stand up and say to the Republicans in the House, let's get busy on this.
Let's talk about Hunter Biden, because things are heating up at the Capitol. What we know today is that Hunter Biden will not respond to a Republican subpoena surrounding his business dealings.
No, that's not true.
Well, that's what he says.
Oh, no.
They wanted.
He responded this morning. He said,
I won't testify behind closed doors.
Right.
I want
a public hearing.
That's right. So Republicans wanted Hunter Biden to testify privately, but in a surprise move, the president's son held a press conference outside of the Capitol and said he will only testify in a public hearing. The House Republicans say President Biden benefited from his son's foreign business dealings and that they will vote soon on an impeachment inquiry. And
this afternoon,
according to CNN, 5:45 Eastern time is when Republicans plan to begin votes on the floor to formalize the impeachment inquiry into President Biden. And so this kind of, flouting the subpoena, or,
oh, you mean like Jim Jordan did? You mean like Jim Jordan did when he refused to testify on the January 6th committee? Oh, give me a break.
Is there, I guess when you formally accept an impeachment inquiry, you can then your subpoenas have more power, or I don't know, but they still don't have the proof. And every time they say they have the proof, it's a big fat zero.
You're right. You're
So
right. How many
what's the
times have
point?
we said, "Oh, we'll find out what's really happening," and there's
Mhm.
nothing. It's a nothing burger. No, look. If Hunter Biden is guilty, let him stand trial and let him be found guilty and let him be punished. If
Right.
he goes to jail, that's what the law says. But Joe Biden is not Hunter Biden. And the argument that Joe Biden profited financially, there's no proof. The one
None.
thing the Republicans came up with turned out to be a repaid car loan. I mean, give me a
That's
break.
it. Yeah.
So, but it's embarrassing
Yeah.
for this country. And let's remember, that I've been talking about impeachment since Richard Nixon's days. And during the Clinton impeachment process, I was used nationally as a leading expert on impeachment. I don't say it to blow my own horn. And I had another expert on impeachment on my program, Mark Thompson's father, who wrote the definitive book on impeachment. By the way, I discovered that. And I called this guy in Washington, D.C., and I said, "I'm with KGO." He said, "Oh, you must know my son." I said, "Who's your son?" Because Mark operates professionally under a different name. I am so outraged. Now, people ask me, what about the Trump impeachment? Okay, or the Clinton impeachment? Let's go back. Clinton, there were grounds. The Monica Lewinsky thing was real. He did lie. He did apologize to the American people. And his law license was suspended in Arkansas. His ability to practice before the Supreme Court was suspended. I mean, there were consequences for Bill Clinton, although he didn't lose his job because people said it didn't rise to the level. Okay. But Donald Trump, people say 2 impeachments of Donald Trump. Well, the first one over Ukraine was a partisan witch hunt. That's what they say. Well, I have to tell you, the Republicans, even when the facts were presented to them, were unprepared to vote for impeachment, except for Mitt Romney, who in the January 6th committee, the Republicans saved Donald Trump. There was no way he could be saved, I thought. I was so wrong because they said, you can't impeach him. He's not president anymore. That was their argument. And thank God Mitt Romney, in a profile and courage moment, the former Republican candidate for president of the United States, former governor of Massachusetts, senator from the state of Utah, stood up and said, he's guilty. Well, I have to tell you, the Republican Party has a lot to defend that I think is indefensible. And if this were a real debate, I'd have great fun. By the way, I listened to Ron DeSantis last night. I mean, he touched all the right Republican bases, but he had no runs, no hits, no errors. Albert, that's for you. I was giving a sports analogy. No runs, no hits, no errors. But what did he say? And let me tell you, he's got a problem.
Yeah.
We are coming up on the first caucus in Iowa. And he has visited all 99 counties. He has a tremendous field team there. And you know what, Kim? He's going to lose. And I think he's going to lose big. And that'll be the end of Ron DeSantis, I hope, as a candidate for president. But wait.
It was a CNN anchor that said she smelled on Ron DeSantis the stench of political death.
That's right. Well, and then there's, of course, Nikki Haley, who got the endorsement of Chris Sununu. Now, Nikki Haley is very articulate, very able. I would never vote for her because we disagree on too many issues.
Right.
But I think Donald Trump is going to run them all over. Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee for president unless something dramatic happens. But even more shocking to me is the polls that show 70 to 80% of Republican voters, even if Trump were guilty of the 91 charges, they'd still vote for him. I mean, unconscionable.
I don't understand how people could be this way. I don't get it.
Cult. It's a cult.
Well, House Speaker Mike Johnson is saying they think they actually have the votes to launch this formal impeachment inquiry. Yeah. So here we go again.
And that will be this afternoon. And then I'm going to stay tuned because I want to hear Ramaswamy talk about somebody who is completely disreputable. And just an appalling. He believes in all the conspiracy theories, Kim. He's going to spend an hour on CNN. I can't wait for that. But you want to have a real contrast? David Frost, who's most famous for the Nixon interviews, did a series of interviews in 1968. The book is published. Of all of the interviews he did with presidential candidates, and the Republican and Democratic potential candidates, including Bobby Kennedy, including Eugene McCarthy, but all the Republicans. To this day, it's a model for the kind of interrogation that Republican candidates and Democratic candidates for president should go through. So, I know that people sometimes say to me, John, you refer too much to history. That's the only way I can put all of this in context. It's the only way I understand what is really happening. And I would commend people to read David Frost's book on the presidential candidates in '68. Read those interviews and then listen to what we are getting today. One other quick comment. I haven't been on, I don't think, since the so-called debate between Newsom and DeSantis. It wasn't a debate.
No.
It was a shouting match.
It was awful.
It was absolutely. You want to hear a real debate? Go Google Stas and Dewey debate, May 17th, 1948. Resolve the Communist Party should be abolished in the United States. It's 1 hour where two presidential candidates really went at each other. It's the last real debate, and it was wonderful. What we see now, I said it's May 19th, not May 17th. Sorry about that. May 19th. I want to correct myself. But I'm interested tonight in how Ramaswamy is presented, because here's a guy who believes in all the conspiracy theories. One thing, I just have to throw this in. Did you hear DeSantis last night attack Dr. Fauci? He did it in a throwaway line, as if Fauci had been responsible for crippling this country. And of course, the Republicans are still talking about the China conspiracy, that it was all in. I mean, you listen to this stuff, and what happened to the party of Lincoln? What happened to the party of Eisenhower? The party of Reagan? I mean, what happened to? I have a shelf here in my library. I could carry the computer over and show you books about the Republican Party. My dear friend Luke Gould, who wrote The History of the Republican Party, the paperback is published by Oxford University. It paints a portrait of a party of conviction, of a party of real belief, a party of great personalities. What we have in the Republican Party today is a joke, and that worries me. Let me make a comment about Liz Cheney. She's talking about running as a third-party candidate for president. We could have a whole hour, Kim, on third-party candidates for president. The last third-party candidate for president to be elected was Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. Most third parties are an obstacle in an election.
Yes,
I would remind you that Al Gore would have won clearly in Florida had it not been for Pat Buchanan in 2000. So I'm not against third parties, but if you're going to build a third party, read it and build it the way the Republicans did. They ran candidates for the House, Senate, and governor in 1856, 1858, and 1860. They built a party from the bottom up, not from the top down. So I'm very concerned about that. And Bobby Kennedy Jr. talking about running as an independent. You know, the good news is it's tough to get on the ballot as an independent. But if you run as a third-party candidate, winning the nomination of an established political party, a third party, you get on the ballot, you can do tremendous damage. And we've seen that time and time again.
You want more of John Rothman? Check out his podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothman, 2 N's at the end, wherever you get your podcasts, and you will find it. John Rothman, thank you for being
free.
on the
By the way, the podcast is free. And I'm delighted to report we've had 100,000 downloads. It's now up over 100,000.
So good.
That's because, in part, the cooperation of the Mark Thompson program and Kim and Albert and, of course, Mark.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Not here today. Thank you for being here, John Rothman.
Thanks, Kim. Anytime for you. Are we on for next week? Because Mark is still
on for next week. He's going to be gone for a while.
One more thing. I know you got to go.
Yeah.
I was going to show you the cartoon of all the animals running away because Theodore Roosevelt was going on safari. And I think Mark Thompson, all the animals should beware. He's not going to shoot you. It's okay.
No, he's a friend of the creature. Thank you, John.
Okay.
Appreciate
Talk
it.
to you later.
Bye. John Rothman, everybody. Happy Hanukkah. Bye-bye. Oh, John Rothman, always so good to talk politics with. And
The Mark Thompson Show.
I know he has a lot of strong opinions. Not everyone agrees, but I always appreciate the conversation and learn something every time I go away from talking with him. Okay, let's do some news before we then visit with pianist John Allaire. Right now, it is news on the Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards. As the House debates an impeachment inquiry vote, as mentioned here on the Mark Thompson Show, on President Biden, Republicans are also looking into contempt proceedings against Hunter Biden. During a speech outside of the Capitol this morning, the president's son said he will only testify publicly. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer and other Republicans rejected Hunter's offer, saying he doesn't get to set the terms of his testimony. Federal Reserve policymakers are leaving interest rates unchanged. It marks the third straight meeting for the central bank voting to put interest rate hikes on hold. The decision to hold interest rates coming after the Fed spent much of the last 2 years raising rates to battle inflation. The private White House meeting with President Biden and families of 8 Americans held hostage by Hamas is over. Hamas took more than 240 people hostage during its October 7th attack on Israel. About 140 people remain in captivity after Hamas released more than 100 hostages during a 7-day ceasefire. Tesla is recalling nearly 2 million electric vehicles over safety concerns related to its auto steer feature. A software update will provide more warnings to drivers as well as allow the automated feature to disengage if the vehicle isn't on the road or if the driver isn't paying enough attention. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration began an investigation in 2001 after nearly a dozen incidents had been reported with this feature. So again, nearly 2 million now Tesla's electric vehicles are being recalled because of this. To news in Los Angeles, protesters blocked all southbound lanes on the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles this morning. About 75 protesters locked arms, sat down in the lanes for a little more than an hour. Traffic was at a standstill, backed up for miles on the southbound side of the freeway. The demonstration began at about 9 this morning. Everyone involved was arrested by 10:30. The group behind the protest is believed to be called If Not Now, LA, comprised of local Jewish people who urge America to end its support for Israel and its war with Hamas in Gaza. CHP officers stayed on to clear the vehicles that reportedly belonged to the protesters that were left behind. And speaking of Los Angeles, the Super Bowl may be coming back to Los Angeles. That, according to ESPN, sources are saying Super Bowl 61 will be played at the home of the Rams and Chargers SoFi Stadium. NFL owners are expected to vote today in Dallas on the location of the 2027 championship football game. The next 3 Super Bowls will be played at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, where the Raiders play, home of the Saints in New Orleans, the Superdome, and the San Francisco 49ers home field Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. Speaking of stadiums, the new projected cost to build Dodger Stadium's gondola is 4 times the original estimate. In 2018, the proposed 7-minute ride from Union Station to the stadium was estimated to cost $125 million to build. The latest estimate, $500 million. Government hearings are scheduled to address the cost overruns and taxpayer concerns as well. That gondola system is expected to be ready by 2028. So we'll see if they move forward with it because of the increase in cost. Scientists testing burnt soil found an unwelcome ingredient, hexavalent chromium. Hexavalent chromium known to cause cancer, and scientists think the intense heat from wildfires turns benign metals in soil into this carcinogen. So it's all about wildfires and that heat. Researchers previously detected dangerous metals from burned out cars and buildings. Now they say we have to worry about toxic gas spewing into the air during these fires, containing toxins coming from the soil as well. The study showed that temperatures more than 390 degrees can catalyze chemicals and turn them into cancer-causing versions. Researchers are concerned that wildfire smoke is spreading toxic metal pollution, something else to be concerned about. California lawmakers trying to shine a light on retail theft and address ways to address the growing problem. The first hearing of the new Assembly Select Committee will take place next Tuesday to start work ahead of the January legislative session. This committee of 9 Democrats and 2 Republicans will be hearing from retailers, criminal justice reformers, law enforcement, and representatives of workers and the public. The blame for rampant theft often assigned to the effects of Prop 47, including recent scathing statements from the Sacramento sheriff. But data suggests shoplifting rates in 2022 were actually lower than those before the pandemic. So, I mean, I don't know. Talked about this a little earlier, but in an unbelievable turn of events, millions of Californians are bracing for their electric bills to jump again. PG&E's rate of hike of nearly 13% was just approved last month. The customers will be shelling out an extra $32 starting New Year's Day. But come March, it could go even higher because PG&E is asking for yet another rate hike to cover costs related to wildfires and other disasters.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Ron, tell it like it is, my friend. If PG&E gets the okay, bills will actually cost $50 to $60 compared to this year.
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
California is taking legal action against a city in Los Angeles County. Governor Newsom says La Cañada Flint Ridge is making excuses rather than building their fair share of housing. He says officials have refused to comply with state laws by denying a project to build 80 mixed income units, 14 hotel units, and nearly 8,000 square feet of office space. Attorney General Bonta is asking the court to allow the Department of Justice to intervene, saying local governments have to do their part to address the housing crisis. So this is the way it will be. Airports are preparing for what could be the busiest Christmas travel season ever. That is why the TSA is encouraging passengers to download the California DMV wallet. It puts your driver's license on your phone so you don't have to hold the real thing in your hand and search for it and take time trying to find it. Officials hope it'll make the checkpoint lines go quicker at LAX, San Francisco International Airport, San Jose Mineta, and others. The TSA has also added a few X-ray machines that will allow them all the items to stay in the bags as well, so they don't have to rifle through things quite as much as what they're saying.
Well, I love that, Kim. That was my favorite part about going to the airport.
What, rifling through your stuff?
Yeah, I love when they do that, and taking off your shoes and
Yeah.
you know, those random searches that they do. They take my cell phone a couple times. Yeah, I don't know what
Are you ready for this one, Albert? If you like Doritos, you can now enjoy a nacho flavored alcoholic beverage.
Yeah, I don't think that's for me.
No, it's not for you.
Maybe if it was Cool Ranch. I'm a Cool Ranch Dorito guy, so maybe I'll try that one, but not the nacho cheese.
Well, Doritos is teaming up with Empirical to create an alcohol that tastes like the chip's classic nacho cheese flavor. It's made by using actual Doritos chips. It'll be available for a limited time. They say it can be used in cocktails or sipped neat over ice. Doritos recommends using it to make a Bloody Mary or a margarita. It'll be sold online for $65 a bottle.
I mean, it doesn't sound half bad. You think about it. You have some tahini with some of your alcoholic beverages. Maybe you used to have like a nice kick, I guess. Maybe it could work. Yeah, maybe it could work. I think that could work.
Lastly, hair samples from 3 former U.S. presidents are heading to deep space. The samples are from John F. Kennedy, Dwight D. Eisenhower, and George Washington, and they will be on board a rocket launched by Celestis early next year. The company specializes in sending remains and DNA to outer space, claiming off-world storage prevents the samples preserves the samples rather for thousands of years without degradation. Celestis says the DNA of the late presidents could help people in the future learn more about U.S. history. Okay. Sounds gimmicky to me, but I'll take it.
That doesn't sound believable. That sounds like they want to clone these people maybe further along. Maybe they'll have the technology, these aliens or something. I don't know.
Well, this report is sponsored by Tenuta Winery in Livermore. You get 10% off your entire order by calling Rich at 925-699-4576 and telling him, smash it with your iron rod. That's all you have to say, as we call it, the phrase.
With your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod. You get your 10% off. And they have so many good wines out there at that Tenuta. You can go out and do the wine tasting. You can walk around the property. It's really beautiful. And I would say it's a great place to get your picture taken with Santa.
Happy holidays to the Mark Thompson Show. Mark, Kim, Albert, Tony, all the listeners. Tenuta Vineyards here in Livermore. Santa, that's me. I'm here every Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. Pictures with Santa are free. We can't thank you enough for all your support. And we just love the Mark Thompson Show. We love Mark, Kim, Albert, Tony, everybody. So just have a happy and safe holiday season. And we hope to see you out here at Tenuta. Call my friend Rich. His number is 925-699-4576. Thanks. Happy holidays.
Holidays to you out at Tenuta Vineyards, Rich and Nancy. And I will say that the Pictures with Santa will be going on this weekend. So head on out to Tenuta, have a little wine, have your picture taken with Santa, and have a really good time. And our thanks to Tenuta for supporting the Mark Thompson Show, and to you for supporting both the show and Tenuta Vineyards as well. I'm Kim McAllister. This is the Mark Thompson Show.
It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Mark Thompson.
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words.
Calling me a liar. Know what you calling me?
You are a cover-up artist and you are a liar.
You know what, pal? You created
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
I don't think you should apologize for how you feel.
I come from regular stock.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Can you let him finish, sir?
Why are you yelling?
It's fantastic.
Seriously, what the Did you really just do that?
It's a great pleasure to welcome in somebody to our show whose roots go really back to the early days of rock and roll and R&B in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm talking about the 1950s. I mean, it's really, he is a treasure.
Yeah.
Right out of Marin County, right, Kim? You bump in. It's the only reason John's on is because of you, Kim.
Well, I went to a piano recital, and he was introduced at the very end, and I thought, this guy is incredible. We have to have him on the show. and he played a holiday song, and I thought it would be perfect for this time of year. So, and who knew? He's a big time Marin musician, national musician actually, and now he lives right in my hometown here in Petaluma.
Well, he has recorded or crossed paths from his website, this information, and then we'll bring him on. But I want you to know this, how distinguished a guy he is. He's recorded or crossed paths with John Lee Hooker, Huey Lewis, Elvin Bishop, Maria Muldaur, Tom Waits, B.B. King, Big Mama Thornton, Lloyd Price, Joan Baez, Steve Miller, Charlie Brown, Charles Brown, Johnny Otis, Louis Bellson. Wow. I mean, these, artists
Yeah.
go way back, some more contemporary. Jimmy Witherspoon, just unreal. Bonnie Raitt, Sammy Hagar. I mean, listen to this. Taj Mahal, Chris Isaac, Boz Scaggs. Come on, Buddy Guy. Give it a big round of applause. John Allaire, everybody. Come on, John. Welcome to the show.
Howdy.
What an honor.
Yeah.
You were born and raised right in the Bay Area, weren't you?
Oakland, yeah.
Yeah. How did you get into the music scene the way, I mean, this is an extraordinary body of work and collaboration you've had.
Well, it all started at Mosswood Park in Oakland. I hung around with this guy that played a little piano, and he showed me 3 chords. That was the beginning of my career. I was like 12 years old, and moved to Marin and went on from there. I don't know, just lucky.
Was that when you say you're taught 3 chords, and then that's the spark that ignites this fire in you to learn more, to create more, to riff more, I mean, to collaborate more?
Well, that's the basis of all the blues and rhythm and blues, the 3 basic chords, You go from there. I mean, yeah. And go on your own from there. So that's all you need to know to play the blues anywhere in the world.
You were jamming with some of the biggest names in the history of R&B and rock and roll. To take me through some of that. I mean, did it all just happen at such an early age? Were you a teenager when all this was going on?
Well,
seems like it would have had to have been.
In the teenage years, I was, I had my own rock and roll band in San Rafael High School. Nobody else was playing. This was like 56. Nobody was playing this kind of music then in Marin.
It was all doo-wop back then in the 50s?
What's that?
Was it all doo-wop then? What was the music? You say nobody was playing this.
No, it was Lucky Logger Dance Time. It was pop.
I see.
Rhythm and blues was what it was called. It was only on a half hour a day in Oakland. There was no black music to the national, and nobody knew about it. So that was the very beginnings of it. I started listening like 1953 to KWBR, which became KDIA later, and they were playing that stuff, And I used to play along with the records.
You, on your website, just kind of describing your background, you mentioned that your mom took you to get lessons, I believe. Isn't that right?
Yeah, from a friend of the family who played trumpet with Ernie Hexer's band. He was kind of a Nazi, So lessons, I had to mow his lawn once a week, and then he gave me lessons, which were both very unfriendly things to do for me. So I opted out of that and just went on my own.
But the R&B thing, I mean, as you say, it was not being done by a lot of people, and you really had an abiding interest in this world of rhythm and blues. And then you did cross over into pop music. I mean, you took on other music, rock and roll music, if you will. And that was really, rock and roll was, again, just in its nascent stages back then, right?
Yeah, this was before Elvis when I was interested, and then all that stuff opened up and it went crazy. But then I sort of got out of that stuff, went to college and got a degree in music and got into jazz and classical music, later on. But the early stuff always stayed with me. I still love it the most.
This is a personal fascination of mine, so but I love to hear about this world of performance and live performance, which I feel just had probably an even more a greater dynamic maybe than it does today. Like you could find more live music places, I think, back in those early days. You could find more hole-in-the-wall spots. You could find more big venues. Maybe this is just my sense of it, romanticizing about, a part of time that I wasn't really, I don't have a window on. But can you describe to me what it was like both in the Bay Area in your life as you were making your way through these early days of rock and roll?
Well, we used to play for school dances and rallies and sock hops, and that was it. We get out of school early to go play at a sock hop. But it was about dancing, man. Rock and roll was about dancing. It wasn't about sitting there looking at somebody. It was all about dancing, communal dancing, So that's what we played in a lot of bars where everybody was dancing.
Were there more venues where you could hear music than there are today, or was it about the same?
Way more in San Francisco, Berkeley, Oakland. Yeah, a lot more. But I was just lucky to be raised in Oakland around the blues. There was a lot of blues going on there.
Mhm.
You know, people transported from New Orleans and stuff. So I got exposed to all that. Maybe wouldn't have had that influence anywhere else if I would have lived in LA or something. I don't know. But yeah, that turned me on a lot. It just seemed normal to me at the time.
Again, you talk about sort of leaving the world of R&B or becoming equally excited about this other world, this rock and roll world. And take us through then how your career evolved. You're saying you then got into classical music and jazz music. So you have all of these different areas in which you're excelling at the time. Just what was your life back then? Were you just going gig to gig, or how did you define yourself then?
Well, I was playing at the bowling alley in San Rafael 6 nights a week and going to San Francisco State College to get my degree. You know, but to go back a little, the early art rhythm and blues music was really kind of an inside thing. Was really hip and cool. Then rock and roll kind of dumbed it down, I thought. So I got disinterested in that, you know, with all the rock and roll. Until later, I got into the Beatles later stuff and all that. But originally, I didn't think anybody could play that well. And so I got into classical, studying classical and playing some jazz, Miles Davis, Jimmy Smith, and so forth, you know.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, nothing.
No, I'm just fascinated because your work has, you know, allowed you to swim in so many different streams. I'm just wondering, you know, what streams were most exciting at what time in your life? You graduated then SF State, right? And then what happens?
Then I went on the road and joined a couple of bands. I went to Los Angeles and made an album and got absorbed in the LA scene.
Was your album a rock and roll album?
Yeah, it was with a band called Pure Love and Pleasure on Dunhill Records. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a real record company.
69 or so. Yeah. It didn't do that well, but it was fun. Yeah, that was pretty, kind of went downhill. You know, they wanted us to be another Mamas and Papas. It didn't work out for them. So
the bands that were hot at the time were Mamas and Papas. Was that the time of like Donovan and I'm just trying to think of who was hot, but was it the mid 60s? Is that, or what is that?
It was the late 60s. Yeah.
Late 60s. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just trying to think of the bands on the chart. So yeah, I feel as though it was probably, wasn't Creedence coming up then, and all of those bands?
Yeah, all happening.
Yeah.
But so, I didn't really wasn't that interested. But I guess I came back to Marin from New York and played the lion's share, and that's when I met Van Morrison, opened the show for Van, and that started a 50-year association with him.
Wow.
You know, and I've been doing it 2 months ago, so you never know.
The standout performers and writers in your history that you've come in contact with that just sort of blew you away, or you went, wow, that person's really got it. It's probably too long a list, but I'm wondering if you could relate a couple that might have stood out in your memory.
Well,
obviously Van Morrison, right? I mean,
he's unique, and I think Jimmy Smith, the organ player, that really turned me on. Miles Davis as an entrepreneur and the bands he had, that really was exciting. And I was really into Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach.
Yeah, as a promising young guy, Johann Sebastian Bach.
I really liked it a lot. I still do. I still try to play it every day. I work at it,
Is Bach the one with the fugues?
Yep, a lot of fugues, man.
Okay. That's about all I know. I'm out of Bach knowledge now. How cool then. So you kind of return to classical even as you're doing the Van Morrison thing.
Always. It's always been in my life, classical. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kim.
I saw Mr. Allaire perform today, and I was overcome by I don't know another word for it, maybe bravado. It's like he walks to the piano, and before he even sits down, he kind of looks at the crowd, and something incredible is about to happen. Like there's just this swagger, this confidence, and then he sits down and he starts playing, and he'll look up and smile, and he just lets it rip. I mean, it's incredible, the experience.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah.
You need that as a performer, though. What Kim's talking about, you need that confidence, right? Even if you're nervous, you need to exude confidence and make the stage your own. Yeah.
Yeah, when I get in front of the audience, the showboat in me kicks in. You like to show off and get approval, and be good at your craft, but you want to relate with an audience. That's the missing ingredient. You got to have the audience behind you and play something relatable.
I feel as though the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, is particularly good as a place to incubate music. Is that just my sense of things, or was that your experience as well?
I never thought about it, but if I was in Montana or somewhere else, I don't know. Yes, it sure is multicultural, all kinds of influences.
Exactly right.
Creative, area has always been, and Oakland even, really a lot going on in Oakland.
No, I mean, especially Oakland, maybe, but I think, wow, you wouldn't have been exposed to all that R&B music, and it wouldn't be so much in your blood were it not for Oakland and all of those great clubs that and all that great music you were exposed to.
There was a guy on the radio back in 1953. It was called KWBR. Now it became KDIA. They were playing R&B, like I say, a half hour a day, and the DJ was Jumpin' George. Jumpin' George, I was my hero. So I walked down to the studio by Lake Merritt and stand in front of the studio through the glass and watch him work. Yeah.
Oh, said, that's great.
You shouldn't hang around here much. I might say something weird or something.
Yeah. It reminds me of that scene in American Graffiti where they go down to to see what Wolfman Jack was about.
Right.
Boy, Fats. I'm just reading about Fats Domino was on the radio at the time, and Fats Domino was Fats Domino a keyboard player as well, or?
Oh yeah, and singer and songwriter.
Yeah,
one of my main guys in my life, man. Still is.
Is that right? That's so good. What do you mean? It still is. Is Fats Domino still around?
No, but I mean, I listen to his music, and
I see. Okay, good.
All the time.
Yeah, it's a touchstone. I see. Yeah. Boy, such legends. I mean, Buddy Guy, Elvin Bishop, Taj Mahal. Wow. And then Van Morrison. How old is Van now? He's in his 80s, yeah?
No, I think he's like 78-ish.
Okay. And he is still amazing, isn't he?
Man, he channels it through, He lets it come through some real creative moments. I just did a tour with him a couple of months ago, East Coast and West Coast. So it was, it's always exciting.
I'll bet. Does anybody open for Van Morrison, or is he just go on by himself?
His daughter.
Oh, wow. Is that right?
Piano open. Mostly. Yeah, Taj Mahal opened a show for him in LA last month too. Yeah, he has a few openers. I opened shows for him myself.
That's really, really great. Really, really great. Well, Kim heard you play these beautiful classical pieces and thought it would be great for you to come on, and I'm so glad she did, because had she not reached out to you in the moment, we would have lost a great opportunity. Now, Kim, what were you saying about? You think that he could play something for us now, holiday?
I was hoping that he could play. What did you play earlier? You played something that I thought might be not copyright protected.
Well, it's just a variation on the standard song, We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
If it's a variation, you can probably get away with it. We can try it.
Is opportunity a ding word?
It's good.
Yes,
absolutely.
Wow,
yes.
John. Well done.
So it's just a variations on those chords. Anyway, every time I play it, it's different, so it won't be exactly the same.
We love it.
That's terrific. So I hope will we hear it, Kim? You think will we hear it, John, through the?
I hope so. We'll give it a shot.
We'll give it a shot. Okay. Let give John a layer, everybody. Let's go for it. Anytime you're ready, sir. Okay. Happy holidays.
And a happy new year.
Wow, I love it. Come on. That was terrific. Wow.
Really good.
I am so envious of that magic that's inside you, pal. That it just comes from a place I'm so in awe of where that comes from and how you're able just to do it. I mean, as you say, it's never the same, when you do it performance to performance. Gosh, really exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you very much, you guys.
Yeah. John Allaire, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that stuff. And please come visit with us again in the new year, pal.
All right, bud. Good to see you all.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
really enjoyed it. John Allaire, everybody. Good stuff. I'm just grateful that we can have a moment here on the Mark Thompson Show to wish everybody a happy holiday season and to reflect on the last year. Kim, why don't I turn it to you, and you can... It's been a big year. We've had some big challenges on the show, but we seem to have met all those challenges. And I just want to take a moment at the holiday season here, and we look back, to appreciate a lot of what's happened this year. So why don't you start?
It's been a really good year. I mean, I have a daughter who started high school, and son's doing really well. We've got a husband with a new job over here. Everything seems to be coming together. It's been a good year.
Kim, great. Happy for you. But this is not about that.
Oh.
This is about the show, Kim. People on the show who you're grateful for.
Why are you yelling?
Because Kim totally misses the point. Of course, she makes it about her. Everybody on this show thinks it's all about me, that I make it all about me my time.
Why are you yelling?
I'm telling you, this is just what I deal with all the time, Kim.
You have done some shifts at KFI. I've had Tony in here helping. Albert helping.
On this show.
Tony and Albert step up when you're not around, and they're so amazing.
You can talk about Tony and Albert.
Thanks, Tony.
All I do,
Albert, thank
is
you.
think about this show, work for this show, worry about this show.
Yeah, well, right now you're cruising through sailing the ocean blue. So
how dare! It's my
I'm
first
just saying.
vacation in years.
I don't think we're at the top of Mark Thompson's mind right now.
Why are you yelling?
This is outrageous.
Well, it is what it is, my friend.
Maybe maybe there's some revelations this holiday season. That's what I'm learning. Unbelievable.
Why are you yelling?
Just outrageous.
Mm-hmm. Happy
holidays,
Mark Thompson.
everybody.
Yep. I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson. And what a great interview with John Allaire. Did you enjoy the piano music, Albert?
I did as a musician myself. It's always nice to see musicians talk about music, their careers, especially like a story career like John's. So that was a really nice interview that Mark did. And it's nice to hear Mark's voice too. I feel like I haven't heard his voice in a while, Kim.
Yeah, gotta bringing it back. A couple people to thank before we do a little bit of news. Harry had started off the show saying happy holidays, said the wreath to the garland, looking forward to the mirth. Well, thank you, Harry. Thank you for always supporting the show. We appreciate it so much. And the Dodge guy with a $20 super sticker. The Dodge guy, thank you, thank you. Really kind and generous of you. And Gail Guthrie with a $10 super sticker. Of course, Gail Guthrie, Hall of Famer. We appreciate you so much, Gail.
Thank you
for your
so much.
kindness and
Thank you so
generosity,
much.
your support of the Mark Thompson Show. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention that we need your support, that this is a crowd-funded show. Please help keep us alive by going to themarkthompsonshow.com. That's where the Patreon and the PayPal links are located. Really easy to click through. And so thank you for anything you can do to help support the Mark Thompson Show and keep interviews like that coming here on YouTube and all of the various podcast platforms. So huge thank you to you guys. All right, let's get into a little bit of news. Why don't we, Albert?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, the House is debating the resolution to authorize the impeachment inquiry into President Biden before a floor vote. While speaking on the House floor, Massachusetts Democrat Jim McGovern accused Republicans of pursuing impeachment at the request of Donald Trump. Democrats insist there is no evidence of wrongdoing by President Biden. Ohio Republican Jim Jordan, meanwhile, argued the inquiry is necessary to investigate credible allegations of wrongdoing during Biden's time as vice president. House Republicans are threatening contempt of Congress proceedings against the president's son. In a surprise move, Hunter Biden said today outside the Capitol he will only be testifying in his father's impeachment inquiry in a public hearing, that he won't respond to a Republican subpoena about his business dealings because they want him to testify in private. Republicans say the president benefited from his son's foreign business dealings and that they will vote soon on the impeachment inquiry. 5:45 Eastern time is what we were told. The fighting between Israel and Hamas still raging in Gaza. This coming after Israel started pumping seawater in the sprawling network of tunnels in the region used by the Palestinian militant group. Israeli forces say Hamas used the tunnels to move around the battlefield and to store rockets and ammunition as well. Federal Reserve policymakers leaving interest rates unchanged. It marks the third straight meeting the central bank has voted to put interest rate hikes on hold. The decision to hold interest rates coming after the Fed spent much of the last 2 years raising those rates to fight off inflation. There is a big meteor shower tonight. NASA calling the Geminid meteor shower the king of the meteor showers, with up to 120 meteors per hour zipping through the sky. The peak Wednesday night into early Thursday, and experts say it'll be especially strong viewing early the morning of December 14th. There's gold in them there hills, and one company wants permission to start mining it again. The Nevada County Board of Supervisors meeting today to decide if Rise Gold has vested rights to reopen the historic Idaho-Maryland mine. They've received pushback from some concerned for the environmental impact of the mine. This mine was active before the current zoning restrictions. Rise Gold hopes to reopen the mine without being subject to the California Environmental Quality Act. Whether or not the county denies the rights, there are sure to be more hearings on this matter in the future, possibly even legal action as well. Still the gold country. Oprah Winfrey's portrait is on display now at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. The Chicago-based artist Sean Michael Warren painted the full-length artwork. Oprah, shown wearing a floor-length purple gown and holding an olive branch from her estate in Montecito, California. The iconic talk show host attended the unveiling ceremony this morning in the museum's courtyard. So Oprah has her portrait on display at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. What a milestone and moment for her. This report is sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. Coachella Valley Coffee, where you can get the holiday blend. It is still on sale. And I'm telling you, the teas are amazing. I'm giving some as stocking stuffers. So the mint, I'm really surprised how much I like the mint teas. The Moroccan mint, the ginger mint, so good. The hibiscus tea, the mango tea, some of my favorites. My daughter loves the chai tea. Mark loving the holiday blend. And others as well. So check out the website, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. If you find something you like, when you get to checkout, please don't forget, put in Mark T at the end, all together, Mark T, and you get 10% off your order at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
Give me a moment, Kim.
Okay, we'll do that.
One moment, and I'm ready right now.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar. Now what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, your pants are on fire!
A Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No, no, no.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Does an itty bitty bit of weed?
100% effective, how about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected. And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
It is the Mark Thompson Show. Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson. Tomorrow on the show, we get David Katz. So we'll talk to David Katz, a former federal prosecutor. Also, we welcome Belinda Weymouth to talk about the planet with It's the Planet Stupid. That coming up tomorrow on the Mark Thompson Show. I saw a story from ABC7 that I wanted to bring up. And that is, it's kind of a statement of the times on what's happening. Well, you could say it's not just Oakland, it's other places as well. But there's an Oakland business that is seeing an enormous uptick in business from customers that are asking for bulletproof glass for their businesses. And they say it's because of crime in the city of Oakland. East Bay Glass, the warehouse in Oakland, they have all kinds of varieties, but the bullet-resistant ballistic glass is what people seem to be asking for. It's 3/8 of an inch all the way to 2.5 inches. And Armatech, which apparently provides glass to East Bay Glass and installers across the country, they have a video showing how multiple shots are not able to penetrate this particular glass. So, with errant bullets and bullets flying into different places, one man had a bullet fly into his apartment in Oakland. Police are saying, yeah, this is a problem. And so now people are saying, give me the bulletproof glass. If I'm going to live here, I want to be safe. A lot of businesses requesting it as well. Some homeowners curious about it. It's about $100 to $120 a square foot. It goes up to $350 a square foot. And that doesn't count installation. So pretty expensive. Oakland High School, as well as another few schools in the area, are asking about possibly installing the bulletproof glass. So again, sign of the times, I'm telling you.
It's a sad time of the times, right? Sad part of the, how things are now.
It really is. Another sad sign of the times, tech layoffs, and we've got another one just reported. Wired, which they have reporters and editors, a great publication out of San Francisco. They're laying off 20 reporters and editors because of cuts from Condé Nast, which I guess is their parent company. So their science and technology magazine Wired is laying off about 20 workers, that according to the company's staff. They said they have to lay off about 5% of the wider workforce, but now they realize the cuts are a little bit deeper than initially thought. 15% of staff getting layoff notices. So just, more people in the Bay Area out of work, and it's frustrating to see that happen. You want to see a publication based on science and technology, legitimate media sources succeed. And now we have the slow cutting back. We were talking earlier about sports, Albert, and also the doom loop, the San Francisco doom loop. And apparently that may be playing a role. According to Buster Posey, he says the doom loop narrative of San Francisco, of failing San Francisco, is killing giants in free agency. That it's possible some Major League Baseball players don't want to move to San Francisco or come to the Giants because of what their wives think about San Francisco, and that it's playing a role. Uneasiness with San Francisco, crime, drugs. This according to Buster Posey, who sat down with the Athletics' Andrew Baggerly. He says whether or not it's fair, perception is reality, and it's a frustrating cycle. He says it's not just with baseball. Baseball is secondary to life and the important things in life. But as far as free agent pursuit goes, he said he's seen that it does affect things. And you wonder if that maybe had any role to play with the Shohei Ohtani deal, where he had the same deal from the Giants as he did from the Dodgers and went and stayed in Los Angeles instead. So,
yeah, I don't know. The I guess San Francisco is, we haven't been getting the best of rap, I guess, nationwide. But I don't think Los Angeles either. I mean, it's not as bad probably as the press we've been getting, but
yeah.
I mean, I think it does play some. I think, well, he's still signed for a California team. I think the tax implications of a player leaving, like going to Texas or Florida, might be a lot better because Uncle Sam isn't taking a big chunk of that contract. But at $700 million, you could survive.
Yeah. It's sad to see it though. And I was talking to a woman this morning, and then also Jefferson Graham, who went to San Francisco to see if the doom loop was really something that was in full swing. And they say no. Apart from the Tenderloin and an area maybe near City Hall, that really San Francisco is as great as it's ever been. So, yeah. All right. Well, this is the Mark Thompson Show. Again, tomorrow we have David Katz on the show. It's The Planet Stupid with Belinda Weymouth. Mark's still on his cruise. Hopefully the weather is better and the boat isn't listing as it was last night. But we'll bring you the update on his vacation. Huge thank you to Harry, who started off the show with a $5 super sticker, the Dodge guy as well with $20. And
Thank you.
Thank you indeed. And Gail Guthrie for $10. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome. And I think I actually might cry. So thank you for all of that so very much. Tomorrow we'll also get to this stories from the sky that I would plan to do today, but kind of time got away from us. So thank you for all of the ways you participate in the show. Thank you for clicking the thumbs up button, which I don't think I've asked you to do yet today. If you're here and you haven't subscribed, please click subscribe as well.
It with your iron rod.
Yes, like it, subscribe to it, and love it. And we appreciate that. Again, please check us out at themarkthompsonshow.com. Find our Patreon and PayPal links there. And thank you for doing that. Also, I'm remiss in not mentioning that on themarkthompsonshow.com, you'll also find this link to getmarkmerch.com. And if you're looking for a great holiday gift, maybe you've got a Mark Thompson Show fan, you will find all of the merch at getmarkmerch.com. And if you just want to remember one website, themarkthompsonshow.com, you'll find the link to the merchandise there as well. I think I'm going to gift myself the Mark Thompson Show throw pillow.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Kim.
Were
I
you?
think
Yeah,
the
great
throw
minds
pillow
think alike,
is
Albert.
the throw pillow, or maybe the pot holder.
The pot holder's a good choice.
Like
Yeah.
who wouldn't want an extra pot holder? You know, I feel like they always either go missing or they're like really worn out. So how's your
Yeah.
holiday shopping going though so far, Kim?
Well, it's almost done, I would say. I have the kids shopping done, although I still am looking for some things for Julia. So the teenage shopping is a little touchy, but other than that, I think things are going pretty well. How about you?
It's not going as well, but I mean, that's why we do like I think me and a group of my cousins, we have like a white elephant going on.
Sure,
So
yeah.
and we're adding a couple rules this year. So it's not just your classic 2 steals and that's it. I think we're adding shots to drink during the steals. So there's a little more risk to
This is a fun cousin group. I like it.
to stealing some of these items. So I'm excited. So and I'm excited and scared. So
That's
it'll be
good.
really fun.
Well, awesome. I'm so glad we got a chance to celebrate the holidays. Please join me next on the After Party Live. I would love to see you there. Again, getmarkmerch.com is where you can find all the things that Albert was just showing us on the screen. Thank you for being here. Again, tomorrow, a great show. We will get to that Stories from the Sky. We'll talk a little bit more tomorrow about this meteor shower and what we may have been able to see early this morning and whether it's going to continue after that as well. So we'll discuss that. We'll have David Katz on the show, and it's going to be another good one. Thank you for putting up with me in Mark Thompson's stead. And thank you, Albert, for all the help today as well. Appreciate having you here. So it is the Mark Thompson Show. Please click the like button on your way out. And we're very grateful. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.